feel silly. Do I have to press this button? There we go. All right. All right, thank you, everybody. I am going to call the meeting to order. It is March 21st today, excuse me, 2024. It is 5:40 p.m. We are starting this meeting about 10 minutes late. This is our RAPTAC meeting, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Okay. Since we've got a new member, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our new member as part of our call to order. Zoe, how do you pronounce your last name?
Houston.
Houston, yeah. Zoe Houston. Excellent. And are you familiar with everybody else that we've got here on the board today?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, then we'll forego some formal introductions. That's great. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2. We are reviewing the meeting minutes from February 26th. Those have been included in your agenda, page 2. Once you've had an opportunity to review those, I will ask if anyone makes a motion to approve.
I already looked them over. I make a motion to approve.
Awesome. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Meeting minutes from February 26th have been approved. Agenda item number 3 is citizens to be heard. There is no one here. Moving on to agenda item number 3.1. Review of the 2024 RAP tax grant applications. Okay. Just so that we have it on the record, we did provide a couple documents for this meeting. We have got all of the individual scores from our 5 voting members, and then we have ranked those, in comparison with what their total scores could be. So we have got individual scores, we've got their calculated scores based on percentage, and then we've also got their applications on hand in case we need to review those. Okay. Now, where did you guys go from here last year, right? Okay, now where do we start?
There was a lot of discussion last year about what was an ongoing program, something that happens every year, versus what was a one-time project. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was kind of a focus on, with one-time projects, trying to do a little bit more for those. Is that what you guys recall?
Okay.
Generally. If we can fund the whole thing, that's kind of nice, or at least partially. And then, so we kind of sorted them by that. I don't know if we necessarily need to do that this time. There are fewer projects, a lot of ongoing programs, at least that I
Got it.
remember. I don't know, maybe we could start with, my suggestion would be ones that we don't think qualify.
Okay. That's fair. Let's go ahead and pull up.
Scored low?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go ahead and pull up that document with the RAP tax 2024 calculated scores. I mean, those, we really put the calculations based on the percentages and listed those, numerically from the lowest scoring to the highest scoring. So if we wanted to look at that and go from there, I think that's a great starting point.
And then I would also add, could we all agree that there's some that weren't totally applicable to the?
I have some,
okay.
at least discussion on those.
Yeah, so that would be a good, I think paring it down is a great.
Okay.
Yes, and there were.
Yeah. Let's start with disqualified and then go to not
Okay.
applicable.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there were 2 for the purposes of the documentation that didn't receive scores from some people, which I assumed meant that we anticipated potentially deciding that they were not viable applications. So I've listed those at the bottom. They've got the X's next to them. And the 2 that didn't receive scores from all members were the cultural fire events and the Moab Tycho Dan Barn. The Moab Tycho Dan Barn actually pulled that application out. So that is.
Okay, so I only have one note on the cultural fire event. I understand the city voted to just have the RAP tax be the city and not the county. But perhaps we can reply to applications like the Red Powwow, that they could maybe ask for like advertising money in the city, because a lot of city community go to it. So they had good numbers, they're a good event. I love the event. It just seems sad that just because they're at the Spanish Trail Arena, the city doesn't support it.
But
Now, it would be a small amount, like 500 or something, but
that's
I
the
don't know if
breaks.
there's a way to.
That's the breaks. That's the law is, the county did not vote for the tax. So we're gonna spend it in Moab.
The city has, other cities had the ability to include.
The county voted not to have the tax. That allowed Moab to go for it.
To capitalize on it.
So, they voted no, you don't get any dough.
Ultimately, I think this is one where
You know?
if
Okay.
I were to write the grant, I would have checked beforehand.
Yes, okay. Or I was just saying maybe to reply to them, well, they could advertise in the city or
Sure.
do
Now,
a free demonstration in a park.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely see where you're going. Molly, were you referring to them for next year's application? Or did you still want to give an opportunity in this year's?
I think as a committee, we should respond to those that are excluded or let them know why.
But I
And
think we're
maybe-
also, what
And
you're
adding a
suggesting
suggestion.
but I think your suggestion may be overstepping the bounds of
Okay.
this committee.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But I agree with the premise.
No, I just need to hear that. That's fine. Yep, great. Okay.
Okay. All right. So based on that conversation, have we gone ahead and agreed that the cultural fire events, the powwow, is not qualified to apply for grant funds?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Okay.
I'd like to suggest we talk about CFI next,
Okay.
unless anyone had any other disqualification ones.
I had some questions about relevancy, but maybe that's where you're going also. So I think we can wait.
Yeah, totally. CFI applied for a program that occurs around the region and threw in kind of like, and we'll do one in the Moabs, like on the Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
I did some math and I said, well, if they're doing 10 hikes and you split it into a 10th, it would only be like 1,600 would be the cost. So like, I would personally be willing to put up like a 10th of the cost of the program to fund specifically that hike. But I think over that, then you're getting into,
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and I could also see where it's like, you know, potentially disqualifying. I don't know.
I agree completely. So let's look at those high scores on CFI, and let's question that. I would think that kind of idea would come under benefits to the community. So if you're looking at something where the grant proposal is only a 10th to the benefit of the community, you would score it really low on that benefit to the community. But I see everyone scored very high. Well, I guess we didn't. Yeah, you did very low. Neil scored high.
I think I scored low. I mean, I can,
That's-
certainly imagine the benefit, but I didn't feel like it was explicitly explained within the grant, like you had to kind
Yeah.
of get there yourself.
Yeah.
So the
But
need was not demonstrated
low
to me.
benefit to low population of the
Yeah.
community. And even though they're saying it would be accessible, not super accessible. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I guess transportation wise, you know,
yeah.
I guess they provide
I think they
transportation for
provide
all of them.
transportation,
Yeah, right.
I feel like my questions about it are separate from like the does it qualify.
Okay, what are your questions?
I feel like there was, it wasn't totally fleshed out in the grant to me, like what is the demonstrated need? I think they got there with the benefit, but I don't know, I feel like I can certainly imagine the need, but I didn't feel like it was super well backed up in their grant.
I agree.
And then I wanted to see a little bit more planning for experts, like it was kind of alluded to that there would be these guests on the hike. But yeah, a little bit more planning, especially because a lot of the funding was going to paying these paid experts who'd be joining on the hikes. So those
Yeah.
were just kind of my questions, which is those kind of fall under implementation.
I don't know if I have really a follow-up, but bit more of an addition, and it kind of goes with a few of these. Like, the funding is for recreation, arts, and parks. The mental health hikes are recreation taking place on a park,
Yeah,
but the goal is more like mental health,
yeah.
which to me makes it a little bit
Yeah.
less relevant. I don't know, I guess you could consider it additive to like, oh, it's providing more of a benefit beyond recreation and arts, but that doesn't feel like,
I thought about that for a few of them.
I wondered the same
Like
thing.
with Science Moab, I liked the like creative use of the parks. I think like people sometimes don't spend a lot of time in parks, and so having something creative and unique that brings them there, I think is
So Emily, how would we
important.
get that where that person would then score it lower to have that concern on benefit to the community, demonstrated need, instead of high scoring? So I chose to score low on those because it was a smaller population, 20 people per hikes that could be hard to find.
I guess I did
Wellness.
end up scoring it fairly low. The scoring part for me is really hard. It's easier for me
It
to
is hard.
verbalize and talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately I said, well, it's recreation, it's in the parks, and it has this added benefit of mental health. But I did the funding lower, you know.
Right, but we base the funding on the score, don't we, as a percent? Or we do the funding?
That's what we did last year.
Yeah.
What we did was, we
Did a percent?
We looked at how many, what amount of money we had, the 92,000, and we kind of backed into it just by nibbling away. There was some where we said, well, we just can't fund that. Or we said, instead of giving the Moab Music Festival the 18,000 they asked for, we gave them maybe 9, until we kind of came down. And then some of the other projects, you know, we were able, that we weren't gonna fund.
Yeah.
We found a few dollars that way.
And generally speaking, I'd say my understanding, and please correct me, but is that we don't necessarily have a specific calculation. Based on a lot of feedback that I'm getting from you guys, it seems like we might want to lean in that direction in years moving forward, and that can be part of our debrief conversation, you know, but my understanding is that it was fairly subjective in terms of the amount you opted to fund based on
Yeah.
your feelings
It
about
was
the application.
based on a mathematical calculation, but.
And certainly the higher scoring projects,
Okay.
we tended to fund the most. And just kind of worked our way down.
Maybe we should start there then, you know?
I like the idea of eliminating anything that isn't relevant. I think
Okay.
that's a good
Yeah.
place to start.
Or small amounts, so we're on CFI, $3,000 requested, a tenth would only be $300. 71%, they scored 71%, would be 2,800. We gotta come up with some qualitative way
Yeah.
to see the difference between 1/10 and 71%.
I don't know if I can
Right.
do that.
And we can base some things on.
Last year, I don't know, we had, Annie had a schedule up there, and we could play with the numbers and adjust them in real time.
It was on the Excel spreadsheet, so, and the total was on the bottom, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could share what I created here, and you can make us, like, copy the sheet, because I think it might work,
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Are there other ones that we felt like maybe weren't relevant necessarily? I had one.
Yeah,
I do.
go ahead, I have some.
I think it was mindfulness and education.
was just
I
gonna
just had a difficult time connecting it to arts and recreation. Like, there's certainly a need, seems like an important, successful program, but it didn't feel relevant to the rep.
And I completely agree, I feel it's
I
very
agree.
isolated to just school students. They actually
Yes.
go into the classroom.
Yeah.
And I would tie the CFI, the mindfulness, and the wellness collective in the same group.
Yep,
They-
wellness, I had a hard time
Yeah, because
connecting as well.
wellness and mindfulness, they're doing the same things, but to isolated user groups. So then, that's why I had her print out these breakdowns on each category when you're scoring, because under, the benefits, we qualified the number of residents by age, user group, et cetera, served by the project. So some of these projects have just really isolated user groups that maybe don't spread to the whole community.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to have target audience, I think. I don't know, mindfulness to me, it's like, it's in this like gray area of like yoga is considered recreation, I think.
It would be great if they had some open yoga in the parks that anyone could go to. They only go to one class, 4th grade, and they pay their teachers, not much, $50.
Well, and
They
that's-
did 62 classes. Yeah, they did a great letter of grant. I'm just saying it's really specific, so it should have a low score and that benefits the community, because at the same time,
I kind of want to keep that, so if you'd add another sheet and then just kind of copy the format and then delete the my recommendation numbers, that would be.
I think I'll just download it.
I agree with Emily. I think a specific target audience isn't problematic to me. I like things that have a niche, and I think sometimes you're more successful in attracting people that way versus open to everyone.
okay.
I think that's kind of how we get like interest and diversity in our different user groups in this community too.
As long as it's paired with a demonstrated
Yeah.
need, yep.
Yeah.
And I would,
Okay.
I would add to that as well, and say like, there was a survey that USU did in 2022, it was like a community wellness survey, I think, well-being, that said like opportunities for youth was like one of their top concerns. So like, I think that, you know, it matches with like the needs of the community. That wasn't, like, that's me extrapolating with what I know, they didn't necessarily put that in the application.
Who, I lost you for a sec, who were you specifically?
Mindfulness, I
Okay.
guess, in education.
But it would come back to me that doesn't fit with the wrap.
I did think we did give them some funding last year, didn't we?
Did we?
We did, but I
Mindfulness,
changed my
yeah.
mind when I kept trying to analyze. Last year, I was like, great, it's some kind of recreation, but
I wrote high need, but maybe not an appropriate use.
Yeah.
Or as relevant for rep. But that was fine.
We thought it was important, an important program. But again, we had that discussion about is it,
Yeah.
but
I think we
were
is
able
that
to
one of
give
the
it.
ones we came back to and said
Yes,
if we have funding
yeah,
then we'll
yeah.
do it?
Yeah,
So should we keep it in for now? We don't all feel that it needs to go?
I
So-
guess so we're all agreeing the scoring's not reflecting on how we're granting money. I mean, I thought the idea was the scoring helped us
Well,
decide on,
my thought is that then we're
Yeah.
gonna pare it down, and then what we're left with, and we're paring it down based on
Okay.
relevance to RAP, and then, what was the other
Then
one?
we can look
Right.
at scores.
but
Yeah.
paring it down, we also never give the full amount.
well, what, I would recommend, if we have this sheet with the scores, we can start
With the top.
at the top and go down and see where the projects fall off. Like if you scored an 83 or under, you're out. If we
Oh.
give them all the money they've requested. Follow? So that we know,
Okay.
by the time we get there, we're out of money.
That's a really nice, simple, clean way, and then we can start trying to,
You know?
Right, but we might have arguments on not, even
We
if
might.
they scored high, of not giving them all the money they requested.
absolutely, and then
Right.
we can open up, that
Yeah.
seems like a
think that's a
nice
great
approach
idea.
too, yeah.
And there's some room
Yeah.
for discussion in there,
Yeah.
which is great.
So we kind of just want to add it up from the bottom and see
Yeah.
when we would essentially have given away the full.
And that's where we say, well, you know, if we just give Science Moab 8, yeah, whatever, you know, just.
I know, but if
just
you start
pull
from
that
the
out.
top and give everyone the full amount, you won't get very far, but okay.
Right.
We get starting from the top, but maybe not necessarily giving the full amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't give the full amount. to
Right,
Friends.
Right, I'm not saying, yeah, I'm just.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
and then we-
So where does that, who did the math, where does that leave us?
I'm doing it right now.
Well, aren't we just using this sheet? And there's only one score of 97, so the top one was Friends of Moab Folk Festival. Isn't that what we're basing it
I
on?
don't really understand, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're starting at the top scoring.
So we could fully fund with our $93,000 from Moab Community Dance Band, starting at percentage 86 down to Friends of Moab Folk Festival, if we wanted to fully fund.
Richard, my understanding was we start from
The
the
top.
bottom, which is the top,
Right.
and then we prioritizing the ones that scored the highest, and then have a discussion about how much we want to fund.
Yeah,
Pick a number that maybe we come back to, and then
Right.
move to the next one, and then when we run out, we run out.
yeah.
How far does that get us, Bree? Two applicants?
No.
No, that's what I just said. So
Well,
the 1, 2, 3,
Okay,
4,
should we
5,
start off,
6,
for
7, 8.
instance, Friends of Moab Folk Festival, is this what we're basing the score on, or are we basing the score off of this? What are we looking at? Which score?
It's the same thing.
it's the same thing.
This is a lot easier, I would use this.
Okay,
Yeah.
So
Alright.
this is the
So-
starting point. They want 18.6.
right, and last year they requested 18.6 and we granted them 10.
Right.
So that would be an easy one to grant them 10.
I think that's a good
I
place
love
to
that,
start.
yeah. Great event, they have a lot of money.
Excellent.
Excellent, yeah.
Yeah.
They do
Mention
great
it into
fundraising.
Our declining budget, or whatever you call it.
Okay, the
Got it.
next number looks like Moab Valley Multicultural Center. Last year, their youth program was 10, requested 10, we gave them 5. This year it's the same. I have a problem with Moab Valley Multicultural Center amongst these other things of just being youth, just target, just youth. It's just like,
I'm gonna,
That's not a problem to me.
Okay, all right.
And I
Me neither.
think like, I mean, youth are a huge part of the community, and they go home to their families, and they grow up and they live here. and
Yeah, okay, great.
generalization isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a very well thought through proposal. I thought they had very high demonstrated need in the community, a very high demonstrated benefit. I love that they are using arts and recreation to improve social determinants of health.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
On my sheet, I recommended 7. But what
Okay.
do other people think?
Oh, I have mine too.
At this point, I think we just need a starting point, right?
Yeah,
A number to put down and then.
yeah, last year we gave them 5.
Yeah,
Okay,
I guess I should.
no, it's okay, it's helping.
That was a good comment. Pushing us forward.
Right? Yeah. Do we want to start with Emily's 7,000 recommended?
Yes,
I like that, yeah.
Moving on.
okay, Science Moab's next. They actually requested less this year than last year.
I recommended 7 for them as well.
Great, sounds good.
That worked.
That was one of the ones that I struggled with a little bit, because like you guys said, it's definitely, it's recreation, but it's also education. They're in parks, but,
Yeah.
you know,
They're in a bar a lot.
they are too,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
That-
yeah.
Molly, that's your
That's why I
recreation.
didn't
That's your- They're
Yeah.
speaking to you.
No, I'm just kidding. I think if you look at the budget, they were not necessarily using these funds for
For
that. They were
those,
for the ones
yeah.
in parks. And I think it's a creative use of green spaces.
Okay, we'll start with 7,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there. All right, we are on to Moab Art Trails.
I think they're the quintessential example of city arts program. Hello. Hi, I was just curious. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah,
May we offer them pizza?
yeah,
There is.
yeah, we know why you're here, Mark.
I think we gave them 10,000 last year. I think
We
they
actually,
bumped-
they requested 10, we gave them 7 last year.
Oh, is that, was it
Yeah.
7? Okay.
Yeah, I have it here. So Emily, what'd you write down for that one?
I did 5. But I would bump up to 7 if people wanted to.
Somewhere between 5 and 7 feels good to me.
I was personally, yeah, like you guys, almost most excited about this one.
Right. It's
Like
a-
Molly said, very quintessential, it covers all the bases.
Right, you walk, you can do art walk,
Yeah.
anyone can enjoy the idea of art.
This is really good. Well,
That is very good toffee.
Best I've found around here.
Hey, we're kind of stuck on that one number.
I keep hearing sevens, right? Is that another seven?
Okay,
honestly, what I did was spread out in a lot of the like ongoing programming. I tried to give 7 when I could, especially the higher one, or ones that I scored. I think.
These are Emily's numbers.
well, I was gonna say, I actually can't read them because I don't have glasses on, but,
I can zoom in.
are we using the numbers, that's all I'm saying. Are we? Yeah,
Here are the numbers that we've decided upon thus far,
okay,
and then I just pulled up Emily's.
Yes, we are using the numbers.
okay, I just can't read them, so,
Did you fully fund any of them?
Let me see if I can,
no. Okay, so we're on the next
Maybe.
one.
did we say seven for that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
What was that, the art trails?
Yeah. On the youth garden project, last year the grant was less. This year I embraced the grant because they changed it to reflect park. And it just reminded me of the Red Butte Gardens in Salt Lake City, is that is true. Walking through is great. So I just love the idea of the twist on it.
Yeah.
So I recommend a higher amount, a bigger percent of the amount requested.
10?
What did Emily put for?
Look at my.
I know, she does.
Oh, fund them.
I'm gonna throw out 10, the requested 18.6.
Love that.
I'm totally just.
Nice, Molly. Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
all right.
that's what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
And you know, we can come back at some
Yes,
point.
Oh, that,
can.
we will
Yeah.
come back.
And
Yeah,
we
yeah.
say,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
maybe we
Yeah.
can do,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna see how far we can get with the money.
Moab Community Cycles.
Yeah.
I was actually excited about this one this year. They
Yeah.
did score
I
higher.
was too. Molly, you and I are on the same page.
They did a really great grant proposal. It was like very specific, like very clear what the need was, very clear what the goal was.
I actually suggest funding that whole one.
Yeah, Molly, yeah.
Okay.
I
second that.
I have to say that with this money, and I have a soft spot for the non-established, like, this is a really powerful thing that we have, an opportunity in this room, is to fund the just, this getting started, the really, like, niche,
And they found a
yeah.
supporter, the Moab Free Health Club.
Absolutely,
As a
yeah.
full supporter.
yeah.
And in a
Right.
mountain bike community, our city should support community cycling as opposed to
Absolutely.
the recreation of mountain biking.
Yeah.
That and the
And
multicultural center
transportation.
do a
Absolutely.
great idea on that.
Totally agree. Yeah.
so 7, so give them all that, okay?
Yeah,
I
even
said-
even the 32?
Yeah, the full amount.
The
Have you seen the
specific.
cost of lumber?
Okay. Yeah, I just wrote, really good application considering they are an all-volunteer organization, which is
Yeah, great drawings, yeah.
Good drawings.
Okay, Yusra,
You saw it?
You, Sarah?
very nice that you included this year's letters from last year.
so nice.
What do you call those?
Letters of support.
The letters of
Letters of
support.
support. That was a strong letter of support, even though it was the actual people doing it that wrote the letters. So I looked at the names. But hey, that's a good effort.
I think that's a good program, and we
Yeah.
should give it some good support.
I like that Moab Skate Night partnered with USARA,
Yeah.
just to bring in different populations.
I recommended 7.
Yeah.
Which is
I
close to the
recommend
total.
half or less, like 5. I'd recommend 5.
I'd go with the 7.
I'd go with 7.
What are you thinking, Molly? What,
It's just, recreation that you need skates. They do like loud music.
They provide the skates.
They provide skates,
I know, but like in life, if you want to go skating, you have to have skates.
and they provide music, which is great.
The only thing I was a
Sorry,
little,
I feel
I'm
like
always
we're all like,
I know, I've always not liked it.
I just didn't think that they served a large number of
Yeah,
people.
it's a very small
That was the
number.
only, you know, that was
They
my
have
only
trouble
caveat.
getting the families out there.
And they have an important mission, so.
Well, and I was, maybe this is just more for my knowledge, but when I got here late in the year last year, the only skate night I had seen was out at the
Yeah,
That
Spanish
was my
Trail.
issue.
Spanish
Yeah.
Trail, so
That's my issue is
did they
really-
move this specifically for
They
this
just-
grant?
They said they did
Do
it
they?
with
Okay.
Suncourt, yeah.
Do they? That's interesting. I just have a hard time
The
thinking
problem
people
is,
skate
maybe in the
there.
community, I've never seen the ads for it. Like, I've never actually gone to a skate night.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people who go personally. Never
Yeah.
been.
Okay,
I think it's like fun, unique. They're using
well,
like,
anyway,
city
I recommend
recreation
5,
areas.
I'm hearing 7.
Maybe we can
back.
compromise and do 6.
You wanna
There
compromise
you
at
go.
6
Six
right now?
now.
Love it.
Cool. You guys are moving right along. I like it.
This is going much faster this year.
I recommend giving the dance band the $1,180.
I agree.
Great.
Okay.
They're very efficient,
Yep.
they use it wisely.
They do.
I feel like the committee has an obligation to maybe go to a skate night, maybe go to community.
I think so, we need to
I've
do
been.
some, on the ground.
We can, as a group.
Where is dance band?
Dance band?
Where's dance band on your little sheet over here?
Did I forget it?
You
I
might
might
No.
have forgotten it.
I think you did, because there were 21, and I think you've only got 20 on here.
Okay.
We'll
add it in.
In that case,
You're all
sorry.
messed up, yeah, you'll have to adjust. That's okay, that's why we do round 1.
Yep.
Music festival, I kind of feel the same about YGP and Folk Fest. Very established, they do a good thing. 10.
Yeah.
They probably need the resources a lot less
Yeah,
than
I've
these other
heard
groups.
some disgruntled people say, why should a well-endowed fundraising thing like the music festival get any money? And I would like to remind people, you just tell them, because they benefit the community in huge ways.
Yeah.
They impact commercial businesses.
And they've done a lot to expand their reach to the local community
Yeah.
throughout the year, too.
Yeah, absolutely,
I
the
feel embarrassed
schools
to
and
not
everything,
The
yeah.
Winterlude.
And this is, most of this, I believe, is directed towards Winterlude. When they're here and they do several programs with the schools.
Absolutely.
And then
It's-
put on
it's great
free
community
concerts.
outreach, yeah.
So that's what this
Yeah,
application is for, as I understand it.
absolutely.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have the folk festival, the music festival.
Yeah.
Did we write that one in yet?
10,000, I think.
10?
No, 10,
And
okay.
same as, Folk Fest, yeah.
Some of the request amounts are wrong. For instance, the Moab Musical Festival requested 8.6, but it says 12 there. Oh, well.
I don't know.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Next one's KZMU.
I'll double check, just update some of them.
KZMU.
The KZMU one falls into that same odd character as Science Moab to me, but it is a community thing that all of us use, and the way they write the grant, it's to benefit people on hearing the arts. Like, they broadcast the folk festival,
Yeah.
and they broadcast the council do they? Broadcast the council meetings?
And they have a
They
history
do a
of-
lot. They broadcast the
But they were also
the
talking about
music.
the project with, I'm forgetting.
Forgotten Arts.
The Forgotten Arts,
Yeah.
which
That
was
one was
pretty,
Right.
Yeah.
pretty
Which
neat,
is a-
yeah.
They have a history of doing really cool, like, special reporting
Yeah.
segments.
Bree, did you just double check that the formula still works? I just want to make sure we.
It does for the bottom, yeah, I did.
And for the record, I have a show on KZMU.
Art talks.
Thanks
Art
You're
talk.
representing.
Right.
Okay, so on KZMU, what did Emily?
I recommended 7.
big surprise.
Like I said, I tried to kind of like even it.
Okay.
I'd recommend 6, but we can always come back to it.
So we'll put down 7 for now?
this is the second year they've tried to get funding for that equipment.
Yeah,
It was definitely a clearer connection this year, and they added that radio show program about art into
Yeah.
it, so that made it a lot better for me.
Last year, we granted them 45.
Moab Arts Festival. I am on their board of directors.
I am a strong proponent. I see that it scored low. I recommend,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
huh?
What'd
you recommend?
I was gonna interrupt you, sorry. I guess one question that I have is, how do we ensure it's not duplicative of the city's fall event? I guess it just adds another event, but there's like the craft fair.
Well, and the city puts on the fall one?
But the Moab Arts Festival is the one,
Do you have a different file?
the Moab Arts Festival is the one over Memorial Day.
Yeah.
It's the two-day festival.
I gotta say, for 30 years, it's impacted my life.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
Something about visitors that time of year, I don't know.
Impacted your life in a negative way?
Oh, positive.
Po-
No,
okay,
it's
okay,
always been a
okay.
part of my Moab experience.
Yeah, same.
Mainly because I have friends visiting then,
Yeah.
and in between other things, it's like, let's go to the
Yeah.
festival, and I don't know.
Get to
And
hear music.
I love seeing Swanee like that, just bustling
Right.
with, yeah.
Yeah.
And last year, the grants were poorly written. This year, the grants were well-written.
Despite my comment, I just kind of wanted to like put it out there, I guess. I did recommend a pretty high, like, I think, I recommended 7,400
Oh.
for them.
Okay, let's go
I
for
know
that
it's
and see how far it
Random,
goes.
because at a certain point, you get to the like random numbers, and I was just like adding things in here and there. Yeah,
Say again, what are we recommending?
7.4. 7.4 is the first off of the
Oh,
round
man.
number.
Okay, we're at 79,612 right now, so.
Well, we might have to go back.
Definitely going.
Okay, Moab Museum, I feel we should at least fund half of it or some of it. I'd go 2,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, that feels reasonable.
Um,
Three?
Yeah, as we're getting down in some of the overall scoring, should we start adjusting our, we've been like
Right,
in that,
like to
the
half or
yeah.
less, yeah.
So maybe we should start
Yeah.
dropping that down to.
I know they need funding. They did a clear grant on this one project. I've just always hated that darn balsam wood map.
Molly!
Personal. Very
Hey, Molly, look at this. Molly, look over here.
Wave to you too.
It's just for one project, but it really needs it, I guess.
Yep.
I like it.
People would have to pay for entry for the museum
They
to
have
be
a lot
able
of
to.
free
They-
nights.
they do have a
so
lot of-
many free nights.
Yeah.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like, you can be like
And
a
this-
member for like $50 a year.
I can't find where the city supports the museum, so I think it's really important.
I think 2 or 3 would be great.
I can't think of any like funding mechanisms that we support the museum. We
And,
partner with them.
Originally, with the state, a lot of the idea of a wrap tax was specifically for things like museums.
My vote's for 3. I'm gonna interest you.
3,000?
Okay. I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a compromise.
Yeah, it
between
was.
2 and 4.
3,000.
Okay,
I scored the Tyco Don equipment high.
I did too. I felt like they are a huge part of the community, but I wish they had written their grant where they said they were gonna do a city performance or said they were gonna play in the park. I found
You
that
know, they
really
do-
missing. They said, everyone knows how much we do. And I was like, well, you could write it out or say what you're gonna do in 2024.
They do appear at the Arts Festival every year, as well as some other events.
Do they?
So,
Yeah.
yep, and they're
But I
in the
wish
mark.
they just said that.
I
that they would
understand.
do a public performance.
Right. How much do we base off of just purely the application versus what we know that they support in the community?
And I guess we do know they do play at a lot of things. Have you heard them? It's very powerful.
They
They're
practice
great.
in our sports offices. I hear them often,
You
actually.
really wanted that barn application to stay in.
I did actually. I got real excited about that one, because they've got 4 storage units in our whole offices down there right now.
I would recommend, I personally would recommend a high award on this because they are a small community group. They're at many of our events. They don't have a lot of money. And
It's a
for them
very-
to continue, it's important to
Yeah.
to
What
be,
about 26?
I'm
Okay.
sorry?
What about 26?
There you go.
There's somewhere to start.
That evens out with
Tycho-
our
Tycho
400
Dam.
earlier.
Okay.
See, when we come back around, I'd rather knock off a little bit from like the Moab Music Festival to give Tycho Dan their grant request. Because
There
they're
you go.
so specific on
There you
their
go.
equipment needs.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Where a little bit goes a long way, but,
Yes.
okay. All right, coming back up.
Mindfulness in education.
We're back to it.
I felt, yeah, I don't know.
So,
Not
yeah,
as related.
Yeah,
This would-
I had challenges with it.
this would
too.
be a great
Yeah.
example where we really should reply to the applicant that we scored low because of relevancy.
Yeah.
I just feels a little bit bad after we did give them money last year.
Yeah, but we're maturing. I mean, we have to, we have no obligation to do each grant request.
Why don't you just leave that blank for now and go on to the
Or we
others?
could say 2,000, 1,000.
I just like, like Tycho Dan, they work with like Beacon in the schools to do the drumming. It's kind of like mindfulness and education works with the schools to do yoga, and they're just 2 different kinds of recreation in my mind. So I guess I'm the one pro person.
I think I struggled with this one a little bit, again, because I think it leans a lot in that mental health direction and less prioritizing recreation, arts, or parks, but
Yeah, I scored that low, although,
Especially because
because of what we are.
they
that's all.
don't offer up maybe a Saturday in the park with the kids and family, like
There
any,
already are programs like that. I think they're trying to not be duplicative, I guess. And it's
well, there's
specifically
no
mindfulness
grant
and education.
applications for that. Yeah.
I guess, the one thing that I will say is with the younger kids,
Yes.
just I don't know how
Yes.
much yoga it is versus like mindfulness exercises
Right.
and what that.
Thank you.
I don't know. If everyone else disagrees with me, fine. I'd probably give them 1,000.
What'd you say?
she said she'd probably give them $1,000, 1,000.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I thought everyone was arguing over the full amount. Yeah.
No, I don't think, it doesn't seem like anyone wants to give them the full amount. It's like
All right.
nothing versus
1,000,
something.
and we can always come back to that one.
Earmark it for $1,000 right now? Yes.
I thought Grand County Running Club was great. There are like so few like formal events that are accessible to locals because they are so expensive. And I loved that they did something that's like easy and fun and cheap and happens in the winter.
It's a great time of year.
Yeah.
great
I
lot of stuff
thought that
going
would
on.
be
It's
an
well
example of
received,
one
yeah.
we should fund fully.
I agree.
I was surprised it scored so low.
Well, let's look at that.
Oh, this is really good.
I can't find
I
it
skipped it on the
this
first round,
sheet.
which is a mistake.
And there's
I don't
plenty
know
here.
how to find it.
Okay, Zoe and I scored it the lowest.
I don't know why.
And Molly, you gave it a 5 for benefits to the community.
Oh, just because it's the target audience.
I think that's one where the scoring didn't quite match up with like my feelings about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, can we give them the full, we don't have to give them the full amount. Let's give them
I would-
1,500 or 2,000.
I would love to give them the full amount. It's like a one and done project.
They
The
did
amount
ask for
requested is
funding
so
for, like,
low.
2 years, so I don't know if that.
Oh.
I think it was pretty successful. They did the first one last year. and a lot of people went.
They're hoping to not have to do a request every year, so I think, if I remember correctly,
That's right, some of it was.
they were like, we don't wanna fundraise next year, so it's kind of like meant to last for 2 years.
Which they've gotta spend all the funding within the project year,
Do they?
the calendar year they do.
Right, that was an interesting part of.
Do you want me to pull that application up?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
Well,
part is weird.
but we can always come up to it if we need
yeah.
to come up.
And they did, I remember they did specify the amount in their budget that they were pushing forward
Did they?
for next year, I believe so, yeah.
So we take that
Which
part
one was
out.
that,
Yeah.
Grand County?
The running club,
So we
yeah.
have to tell them they have to use their grant in 1 year.
In 1 year.
I know I can't talk about the next one, but I'm
Oh, did we
we-
decide? I'm
ready
still
to
pulling
ask
up the application.
any of your questions.
Zoe, Emily, what are you suggesting?
I would say full amount unless they're specifically saying we're gonna pocket this for next year.
Hmm.
I think it was on the budget that they clarified.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
think it
was
was,
it?
I wanna say it was $500.
And so maybe we just take that part out and we let them know, because that is part of the requirement for applying.
It is, it's specified.
So 2,000?
Well, let's look at the,
Can somebody bring up the budget? I didn't-
She is.
Okay.
Going down, or maybe I'm wrong. Oh, expenditures. No idea, love that. Reserve to use.
What, they give everyone free socks? The sock guy is $1,000.
External.
I always get
For
so many
socks.
free socks. Like Wabi Sabi, you'll see
well,
all
that's
over.
not necessarily,
Okay, that
that's
was
like,
just total project funding.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
not
tricky.
Yeah, and they put that as their self,
Yeah.
that they
so
would
it's not
fund
from
that,
us.
so it's not coming from this
Oh, I see sock guy is giving them the socks?
pool.
No.
I think there's some,
You're hung up on the socks, small.
It's not the pillow
We
guy.
need to move on.
City mob, 466, 900.
Do you know, was there a registration fee
there's
this
a lot
year?
of guessing, I think, happening in this
I don't know,
budget.
it was maybe, it was
That
somewhere
being
between
said, I think
free
it'd
and
be
like
easy for
20
them
bucks.
to spend.
Okay.
There was, because they said entry fees here, they expect to make about 4,500.
Oh, right, okay.
But I think in this year it will be free.
Oh,
And I wanna guess that if they didn't get the wrap tax last year, that's why maybe they did the entry fee, and since their
didn't
plan in their proposal is to make it free.
They didn't apply last year.
oh, so this is their secured funding from this year's race fees.
Oh.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so looks like they don't
Know that?
plan on.
Well, that's what they got from 2023.
Oh, they
Yeah.
say their budget's
Right.
about 5,000, they're requesting 2,500 out of their 5,000.
I would propose giving them the whole thing based on what we have seen.
All right, and we'll
Okay.
circle it if we need to
Yeah.
cut people down.
Okay.
I've got major concerns about these next people, about the management especially.
This is my
is
wife and I.
Maybe a front?
Good, you definitely
Rumors of
something,
a front?
something funny going on.
Honestly, when we talk about arts and representation, this is the only grant application that deals with films. Now, somebody,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I went to one the year before last. This is where the community people make the film, right?
No, that's Biga Metzner's.
Oh,
That's the Moab.
That's what I want.
Oh,
Monument
because
Valley.
I was there and Kevin Costner spoke and he was inspiring everyone to be
Right.
a filmmaker, so I thought this was that one.
No, no.
Whoops. Okay, well, I was
Okay,
fully
I
surprised.
scored it pretty high because film
Yeah.
itself is an art,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it's recreation during the winter.
Yep.
And there's not as much going on.
It's just fun.
And it's totally unique, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I recommended the full amount, but
Let's do it.
okay.
we're down to $4,288 though, so.
Okay, technically that almost just about caps us out.
I know, but we have wiggle room.
We will, and we'll adjust for sure, just
Yeah.
kind of keeping you guys in the loop.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fast pitch.
Their letters were amazing. When I saw the letters,
Absolutely,
they
yeah.
had 44 teams come.
Yeah.
44 teams.
Yep.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
Before that, I was tanking them about relevancy because I want the city of Moab Recreation to pay for that out of the recreation budget of the 80% of the RAP money, not them have to do a grant. But that's never gonna happen.
Right,
So they
it's
have
not
to
a,
do
It's
a
not,
grant.
it's not a city.
Now, on that,
entity,
they're a
yeah.
clever grant writer because they only spent 29,000 and they asked for 46,000 last year. And this year, so I think we could give them some, but realize they are padding their request quite high.
Well, and they've asked for 2 programs, right?
I
They've
know, but
asked
if
to
you
fund
looked
the
at their
camp.
letters, they put the same amount on both letters that they used. They said they used the 5,000 on the one Olympian camp, and then they did the same amount on the other letter.
Right. Interesting.
I'm also curious about just reach and like how, I don't know.
I don't know if it benefits that many people in
Yeah.
that community.
I had like a small gripe with their application that maybe isn't that important.
Right, but when you guys say that, this is 44 teams came here, got hotel rooms, did all this. Well, some of these, like mindfulness, are only going to 40 students.
But those are not local, not.
They are, it's all a local team,
The
local
hotel
women.
ones?
Talking about Fast Pitch?
Yeah.
The Fast Pitch is a local team, correct? Yes.
and there is, I know from my experience raising kids that there is, and I know that their programming, I think started at as early as like 8 years old, and went on to, through high school, the target audience. But I do know that in our recreation programming, there is a major like lapse after like 6th grade, after 11, 12 years old.
Correct.
Yeah.
We try to prep people for the more
Yeah,
competitive
so stuff
organizations
like this
like
is
Fast
pretty
Pitch.
profound to the, you know.
They had an Olympic fast pitch
Yeah.
women's
Yeah.
come to
What
the
did,
camp.
Yeah.
what did we give them last year? Wasn't it like half, wasn't it?
Or no?
Wasn't
I
it?
can
I think,
quote right here, last year Fast Pitch got 10.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that we maybe say 5.
I put 4.
I think that's, yeah, 5, it sounds reasonable. And I also like the idea of supporting some of these groups because when the city might have a little bit more money, they can say, hey, we've used the RAP tax for the last couple of years to help grow this event, whatever the event is. So I like to see us supporting as many of the programs as we can. I mean, I know we can't fund everybody exactly what they want, but I'd like to help everybody who needs it. Yeah. So I'd give them a few bucks.
I'm happy,
Sounds like we're between 4 and 5.
yeah, with 5.
Earmark it for 5 for now.
And
Okay.
negative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just talk about the other ones, Wellness Collective.
The Wellness Collective is a great grant, it's a great project, but how does it fall into RAP?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I had some challenges with
I
that.
also felt like a lot of these, I mean, it's great to have more, but I felt like a lot of these, like, classes are already available by donation or free through like Moonflower and Mark and,
Maybe duplicative.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I think in relation to, I'd have to read the application again, honestly. In relation to mindfulness and education, like those things do kind of tie together. Like if we give funding to one, I almost
Yeah.
feel like we need to give funding to the other.
We earmarked mindfulness for a grand out of their 4.
So Wellness Collective, they were the hikes, right, or the,
Brianne Davis doing, chair yoga.
Oh, right,
the
yeah,
Lot of
okay.
chair
80
yoga.
User
Yep,
group.
yep, okay.
Nutrition classes, I think.
Yeah.
Should we also do a grand since that's what we did for mindfulness?
I thought it was interesting that they were, like with some of their classes, they were targeting like older folks, you know,
Yeah.
which I don't
Right.
think is super represented.
That is true.
How does it fall into recreation, arts and parks?
Yoga, I think, is very definitively
recreation.
recreation.
It's a type of athletic endeavor.
To go.
Okay.
I was challenged by that too, Molly.
I'm curious, based on,
Application up, sorry.
that's what I'm doing right now, yeah, and just kind of
You know,
hearing,
originally, in one of the documents we had, we even stated that a nonprofit's mission statement should include some reference to recreation, arts, parks, or trails. And that's really missing in a lot of people's mission statements, but it
Yeah.
is, it was an interesting, like, caveat
Yeah.
for the, idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're also negative. If there's other projects that we feel like are more deserving of the funds, I mean, I'm also in support of not funding either of them and
Yeah.
redistributing.
I'd be fine not funding
Yeah.
either of them.
Okay.
so it sounds like we're more leaning in the not funding either of them at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of,
Plus $1,000.
Wellness Collective, CFI, and which two were talking about now?
And then mindfulness and education.
Okay.
like,
Oh,
we're
So we'd
taking-
reduce that,
Okay,
and we said no to CFI.
okay. CFI.
Okay.
Remind me what Sea Havens?
so Sea Havens was a pop-up art. The grant was just seemingly last minute put together. It didn't have a lot of, plan or projection to it.
Okay.
It's actually a fun little idea. It just didn't seem to have quality to how they were gonna pull it off. I would have been more engaged with it if they said, we've contacted the Mark to do our pop-ups, or
Yeah.
is that the Recreation Center Arts? But they didn't reference anywhere of how they were gonna do their pop-ups.
Yeah.
So, and they didn't really say they had that staff member or an arts
That's right. I
person or a
remember that, yeah.
volunteer to put these together.
It
I
didn't,
love the idea.
it wasn't a very compelling application.
No, but it was an idea for arts.
I also, I mean, this is maybe just my own personal experience and personal bias, but this kind of event, this like generic art night, I think has been tried so often in Moab, and attendance is very, very low. And,
That's why you're here, is because you have.
yeah, there wasn't anything that stood out to me as like, this is what's gonna set this apart and make it successful.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said.
Sea Havens is
Side
also
note.
flush. in
Hey,
cash,
just now,
so-
just because we have privy to that information doesn't mean they can't do pop-up art.
That's true, that's true.
It's an
And I'm a
underserved
little
community.
jealous.
Yeah.
Why'd you, yeah, we didn't.
I would like
qualify
to
'cause
see
we
it, I
don't have
just
$1
didn't
million
know if they portrayed it enough that they'd actually pull it off.
It did feel a little bit thrown together.
Bree, how'd
I
you
would be
feel
fine
about
not funding it.
I think out of all the organizations, like you kind of mentioned the mission, I almost struggled with this organization. I mean, granted, phenomenal organization, just, I don't know that their mission in and of itself aligns with recreation, arts, and
And there is a lot of evidence
parks.
as how art can support the healing process. and
Sure.
That wasn't
Oh.
included in there.
Yeah,
Trying to see that
Yeah.
mission statement.
you have to extrapolate that yourself.
Yeah.
That's my word of the night.
But it's almost like the Mark could do pop-up art nights.
Are we fine not funding it?
Yeah.
Okay. And if they had included ideas like how on social media I would get an alert to a pop-up, that'd be awesome.
Wow, guys, we're only,
Information out on social media.
what, about $2,700 over?
Okay, so I suggest on some of our big round numbers of sevens, we take little bits off, or maybe even the Moab Music Festival, just a little to fully fund up our 2,000.
I would be fine pulling from the Moab Music Festival just because they are so, they
Yeah,
have
what
so
about
much
8? What
funding.
about 8 for the Moab Music Festival? It shows a little city support,
Yeah,
but they are very flush,
yeah.
and they sort of go high-end. 30 years ago, they put up the musicians in people's homes. Now they get them hotel rooms.
Did we want to do the same thing with the Folk Fest? Or is there or do we feel strongly?
I think the Folk Fest is a different
That
organization.
was just for the free concert.
Yeah,
That's for the
which
summer
is
free.
Very,
But
Yeah.
did anyone look at their budget? Because they do great fundraising. I mean,
They
my
do
gosh,
all the
they
corporate
get
sponsors and, yeah,
huge grants from
yeah.
Utah.
Folk Fest is very well funded. And I was, just generally speaking, when we talk about debriefing, I was more surprised that that's not something that's more heavily considered in the scoring rubric, is that funding mechanism.
I think
but-
that was the idea of the category for the organization, this bottom one. Because the idea, it just doesn't have its own line, like, is it really our right to judge if they need that
If the-
money?
I agree.
Yeah, because they're asking for it.
That's tough.
But the flip side of that, I mean, I would argue that there's some of these maybe in here that, and related to what we just talked about, that we maybe should be jumping to those conclusions about, is this the opportunity, like, is this what's gonna make or break this kind of
Right.
thing? Is this, what other funding sources does Moab Community Cycles have? What, is this
Yeah.
I
something
think
that?
it's less about not
Yeah.
funding the big ones and more about prioritizing smaller,
Yeah.
newer
Right.
grassroots
Yeah.
initiatives.
And I'll be perfectly honest, as someone who, has put on some of these events, we are still working to line up some sponsors for the sci-fi series.
Right.
So if we do line up some money, we're not gonna need as much. So in mid-year, there could be a time to say, hey, how are you doing?
Ooh, Richard, I don't want to be taking money.
No, Richard, but then you could pat it, then you could be like, we could get
All right,
a
never
more
mind.
expensive film.
Never mind.
We could get another,
What do we have for Richard? Let's take
I
it.
got the,
Yeah.
all right, I was just trying to help, that's it. No, I understand.
I like the idea is good, but I don't want to
No,
be the
I
one
know.
to take that money back.
You go crazy.
Back to something, if we're looking specifically at like the organization's budgets and the funding they already have, I think something to consider is like, it's still early in the year, so for people who have already secured funding, that's like really lucky for them. Some programs, like, they might still be applying for funding for the 2024 fiscal year. So I don't know how much I would weigh like secured funding versus like programs that don't have any funding. It's just like, I just know it's really,
It's good perspective, yeah.
well, how about this? For instance, the Multi-Valley Multicultural Center. Last year they asked for 10, we give them 5. They were super grateful, their letters were great. What if we only give them 5 again? We upped it up to 7.
I would advocate for keeping theirs higher. I think like there's such a high community need for programs that serve our youth here. And
Okay.
again, like that tie of arts and recreation to social determinants of health has like unspeakably important impacts on our community.
and like,
The community they serve
yeah,
needs more than need
Yeah.
a little bit more, so,
They work with kids who like have trauma that we don't even understand.
right.
Okay, then we could take a little off of Science Moab. They are very well funded, they do great. See, those are qualitative hard things to come up with. Last year they asked for 17.5, we gave them 5. This year they asked for 14. So they actually asked for less.
Do we only need to find $712 more dollars?
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to
Yeah.
discriminately shave off some of the bigger ones that we
I'd be fine taking
randomly.
$1,000 off of Science Moab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also kind of one of those ones that's on the edge of recreation, arts, and parks and trails.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It, in fact, it's a science, which I love.
one thing I'll throw in there, which I guess is in their application but not part of the narrative, is like, they don't have, like, they have staff, but they basically run on 2 full-time AmeriCorps and then 2 part-time, or 2 or 3 part-time staff members, so like, well-funded, but also like, as far as like, I don't, do you know
Well,
what I'm trying to say?
but
Does a
because
lot
they-
with a little,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because they get their speaker programs to volunteer, like Scott Gibson did his talk. He's an awesome wildlife biologist. I don't think he gets paid.
Yeah, but I also do agree that it's right on the verge with recreation arts.
So
Taking
what
it
if
as an app
we
feels
not
very reasonable.
Science Moab just down a little bit to get some money?
I mean, if we left it at that, we're within our budget range.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Okay,
That was impressive, guys.
excellent.
Emily, I don't know, happy birthday. I don't, your face
Is this
is
your
telling me
birthday?
that you seem like uncertain.
I guess I'm uncomfortable with this conversation a little bit, just because YGP has been so well-funded in this conversation so far, and if you have $288 left to give away, you can give us the awkward amount of 9,000, whatever.
Well, I guess it's just, instead of being specific about groups, we randomly threw out numbers, not based on anything, like the sevens. I mean, I don't know what it was based on. So on that note, we were just randomly trying to shave. It'd be different if we used a percent on the scoring matrix and said, because this scored this gets a percent of that, but,
These things are always so subjective.
okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
I like that too. Yeah, I
Okay,
think that.
because we
yeah.
did see that little ones, it's easier to give them the full amount when it's complete, even if they scored lower, while like big ones. And yet at the same time, we are under no obligation to grant a grant. Grant a grant.
But again, they're helpful, but it's a way to get us to that decision.
Yeah.
You know, I've done these things many, many times, I'm sure all of you have. You know, well, it's like, how do I give something that says community need a 10 and you give it an 8? I say, you know, we could feel the same, exact same, and I give it a 10 and you gave it an 8.
Yeah.
You know, it's a helpful way to legitimize our process. And how did we make decisions? This is how we made the decision. This was our barometer, the scores, and we went back from that. So I'm very comfortable with how we did it. It's not perfect. It'll never be perfect, but we did the best job we could.
Yeah.
It's a great jumping off point, and it kind of worked out. By the time we got to the lower scoring ones, we all
Right,
got
I'm
pretty
feeling a
comfortable
little
where we
awkward,
were.
just still, we went back, we shaved a little, but, let me just clarify, we're not granting Wellness, Canyonlands, or Sea Haven.
Or mindfulness.
Or
For
mine.
mindfulness, there are 4,
Okay.
correct?
The other thing I'll say about the sort of percentage amount calculation with the score is like the amount of money requested, you know, I don't know how to phrase it, I guess. Like, what's to stop, Art Trails requested 12,000. They probably could have requested a lot more, and at that point, would we have given them a lot more? You know, if it was like, we're giving them
A
a percentage
percent.
of their request.
Right,
You know, I like doing it more in terms of like, in relation to other
okay,
things. Do you,
Yeah, that was clear.
okay, great, so we could almost say that to ourselves, we are proportionating it to the size of the group, size of the request? No,
I don't think so. I
No.
think we just used the percentage just to set the initial sort of
Yeah.
qualitative order, and then we added the human element to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
and naturally too, like, we did end up more fully funding things that were one-time projects, which makes sense to me as well.
Right. If it helps anyone, back when community contributions existed before the RAP tax, the amounts were smaller, but then there's been inflation.
Do you need a motion that we adopt this sheet as,
What do we do with our extra 200?
We have $288.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, I wanted to give Tyco
Tyco-
Dan a little bit more.
Tyco Don, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, and that's perfect for their ask, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
specifically asking to ship their big drum.
Yeah.
It's like,
So I would propose, like, I would just, again, just double check the formulas in case we missed anything.
Okay.
so what
Is it- I put
formula
it-
did you use?
Yeah,
That's what
well,
I keep
put
asking.
90 So it adds up to 93,000 at the bottom.
It does.
does it
E2 to
include-
E22. E2 to E22.
Oh, you meant the Excel
2 to
formula.
22?
Yes.
I mean, then I feel,
This
We're
is
good.
maybe
Okay.
an annoying suggestion. Do we want to just fully fund Tyco Dan? We're so close, and maybe pull a little bit from one of the 10,000.
I would like that.
Because that would
Is
make a
everybody
big
really
Yeah.
difference to
excited
them.
about Tyco?
I
Yeah.
would very
I like
much
Tyco
like that.
Dan,
Okay.
yeah.
They were very clear in their
Budget really
grant.
took a hit.
It was.
Okay, so that means 512 we've got to
Okay.
pull somewhere.
I think
Take-
I can speak up when it's to give us less
I
money.
would say take,
I think that's,
I would say take 500 from the Moab Sci-Fi film series.
No, she's saying the youth garden, right? Isn't
Yeah,
Emily?
you
yeah,
two
so from someone who
need
got a
to
lot of
fight
money.
over
I
who's
mean,
gonna
I-
give up the money.
Right.
Right.
What a great,
I mean,
I appreciate
Small,
that, Adrian.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I think,
Yeah.
you know, as I said, we're trying to line up a couple sponsors, and if it happens, we'll be in decent shape, so.
I think pulling from someone who we gave 10,000 to is,
Yeah.
has a smaller impact there.
Yeah, and then you can still get sponsors, and maybe you can get some cool swag for the attendees.
Or another movie, or a higher level movie.
What we do, well, that's
The
that's
thing.
because the city used to help us, but now we don't get the help. I mean, you know, they help us a lot.
that was awesome.
You know, off the record.
Right off the record.
Okay.
City doesn't help us anymore.
Okay,
No, they give us a lot of help.
okay, that's gonna be a really funny amount, 9,488 and 50 cents.
Take it.
Maybe Signals would
Thanks,
throw us
Emily.
off there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to review these and just kind of go down the list for our final check off?
We could always shave some from KZMU if we need more shaving, just because it's, no, they wanna do their equipment. They need this equipment for the
Yeah.
Sparks program.
Yeah.
I like where they're at.
I think
Yeah.
it
I
looks
do
so.
too.
I think-
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, good job.
Well, everyone can kind of see the list then. I won't go down and redundantly read everything off.
I feel good about this.
Now, what is our obligation to reply to grant applications? Do you just simply say to someone like, we did not fund your grant?
Yeah,
I'm not sure what we did last year, but,
Yeah.
you know,
copy paste, yeah.
with the questions that kind of came in this season, I was pleasantly surprised almost that you guys were very much willing to engage in these kind of conversations when people asked about why, you know, maybe they didn't get funding or didn't get the funding that they wanted.
Well, I think it's helpful that, because they can work on their grants better, or like,
Right.
like if we,
Absolutely.
if they ask for advice, they'd be like, well, it'd be nice to know you're giving a public concert or in the city, or
Or,
for the powwow, they could have said they were gonna do one free night down in Old City Park or something,
Right.
or up in Old City Park, but it's just Spanish Trail Arena.
Yeah, I think giving them feedback, if they ask
If
for
they
it.
ask for it,
but we don't want to
Don't
give
say more
feedback
with yourself.
unsolicited.
But we thank them and say,
That's what I'm
you know,
asking, yeah.
Oh,
try again in the
That's
future.
very rare that we get, that you get feedback.
So
without
even the agencies that we didn't fund at
Yeah.
all, it's
asking. And
very
even
Oh.
rare.
sometimes you ask and they don't.
And they don't
Okay.
say.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and if someone did respond with feedback, one thing that more so than last year, people were asking basically for general operating support rather than for a program, because they
Yeah.
just listed all of their programs.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm for or against that, but it just makes it more complicated to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, the Mark Music Festival does a concert at the park, but, or whatever it was, sorry, I'm just trying to think of examples, but then they also requested things for like everything else that they do.
Right.
I don't know if it was Moab Music Festival, but you know what I mean.
That's a hard one, because my understanding is that is like the most important money to keep an organization running, and no one wants to fund it because it's like the least sexy.
I also agree with
But like,
that.
you need to pay employees and like give them health insurance or, yeah.
And I'm not against funding
Yeah.
general operating. I am against you putting general operating things, but only some of your programs
Yeah.
qualifying according to the grant guidelines.
Yeah.
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 That makes
And
sense.
it makes the reporting challenging for us to see, I think,
Yeah,
right?
to really see like, focus in on this
Yeah.
one thing that you asked for, that's what we really want your funding to go to.
You know,
So
I
Emily, you're
think,
saying that you found the grant applicants were more specific? Or,
I found that there were some that were like more like, here's all of our programs, like Science Moab, right? I feel like they did that. They were just trying to do everything that could be relevant, whereas.
and there
like,
wasn't
I
just
would've-
a specific target?
Yeah. I wish
No, I'm
I
just trying
wish
to
I could pick out which one exactly it was that I was thinking like, oh, only some of these things are relevant.
Well,
See
yeah.
if I have a good example.
I'm just trying to come up with notes for next year to make it,
Okay.
what I would like to see is somehow we tie in a spot where we're actually writing on our project review why we think they should get the full amount or a partial amount. So if we had to come back to it, where I would write like on Moab Tyco Dam, very clear applicant that they need these repairs done, very difficult to fundraise, very unique group, great to support, where I would have a note of why I wanted to fully fund the grant. Because that's what I'm finding really confusing and missing. And where on my project review for Moab Music Festival, I would write percent funding because they're well-funded, well-established, strong on their is that even?
That's
Maybe
also
that's like-
your opinion, like, or I guess
That's
it's
where
my
the
opinion.
discussion part
Right.
comes in. Because like, I think we all like wrote our own notes about that to bring here.
Then what is our key we're using so we decide these things, is what I'm saying. I mean, what proof are we gonna, I would like to see us come up with a way to prove why we're saying what
there
we're
is no
saying.
proof. There is no proof.
Okay.
It's
If
what,
there
it's,
was a grant, if
it's
there
what
was
we
a
just
GAMA
did.
request for proof of
Right.
why we scored these the way that
Yeah.
we would most likely provide them with
The scores.
the scores and then
Right,
this
and then
conversation.
it doesn't reflect whether we said, what about a checkbox, like full amount or not full
Yeah.
amount? Or, I don't know.
Well,
'Cause
I
I'm
really
basing it,
I like what you just proposed, Molly, and I remember we just used Emily's suggestions, you
Yeah.
know, and to have in our discussion to say, CFI, I gave them $500, so you gave them $1,000, and
Yeah.
then we can, I just think that'll help zero in. I mean, I don't think there's too much room for improvement with how we just did this.
Okay.
This
All right.
process, but I like that, and I think anything that asks us to think a little bit more about, or in another term, that the application is a positive in just the process.
I was
Yeah.
thinking the same thing. So do we want to go through and just quickly jot down some notes for each? Is that what I'm understanding?
People can watch the video, it's gonna be.
They can.
Yeah.
Right?
I was kind of
Like
moving
next
on
year.
for ideas for next year.
That's
to
what
make
I
it-
was too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done with this process
Yeah,
this year.
right.
Okay,
I was kind of moving on to
We
that
ever make a
debriefing.
motion to
So what
replace
yeah,
we haven't yet.
we should have a follow-up meeting where that gets discussed. What we should do is wrap this up and vote on it and be done.
my birthday?
Yeah.
Let's get out of
Okay,
here.
I make a motion to, send this to the city, council for recommendation for funding.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Excellent job, everybody.
Awesome job, guys.
I mean, this is really a good job. You know,
Thank you for having that percent of
the
requests.
council's gonna be very happy that they don't have to go through.
Yeah, let's say thank Emily for putting this.
Council's gonna be happy with Richard.
Oh, that's true, that's true. I shouldn't say that.
And I
Still
see
upset
that
about the
in my
sci-fi
mind, if
festival.
When do they
I-
find out?
if someone challenged me, why did these not receive something?
Well, we just went through a gamma request for another,
No, I'd say they scored low.
and we didn't have the scoring sheets to respond.
What else do we have
So
to
I'm
do?
understanding the need for what you're saying, you know?
Kelly has something to say.
I will, reach out and we'll talk about the debrief.
I make a motion to adjourn.